Welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation's Conversations at Home program. I'm Leah Palmieri from Decider. Before we are joined by our guest today, I want to let you know that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation is a nonprofit organization that relies entirely on donations to provide emergency assistance and free educational programs to SAG-AFTRA artists. This conversation is made possible thanks to the generosity of our supporters. Over the past year, the foundation has given nearly $7 million in COVID relief to more than 7,000 performers. If you are a SAG-AFTRA artist and need help, please ask. And if you can help, please give. Information can be found in the description of this video. Thank you for your support. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce Emmy-nominated actor Paul Reiser, who stars in the critically acclaimed comedy series, The Kominsky Method. This third and final season of The Kominsky Method on Netflix deals with money, death, love, murder, and dreams coming true. In other words, the usual. Welcome, Paul.
Hey.
Hi there. How are you?
That was a very nice summation.
Yeah.
Love, life, death, and dreams coming true.
Yeah,
what more can you ask of a half-hour comedy?
Not much more. And it delivers on all elements. So there's that.
It does. Yeah, it was so. It was a really interesting challenge that Chuck Lorre had. You know, he had 6 episodes to wrap up this sort of short-lived series, and absent one of the 2 co-stars that started the show, and dealing with the character's death. So it was an uphill battle that he did so creatively, I thought, and well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We have much to discuss about this season, but first things first, The Kominsky Method just received 6 Emmy nominations, including one for you as Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Comedy Series, which is the 11th Emmy nomination of your career. But yeah, correct me if I'm wrong. I think this might be the first one that you owe a little bit of credit to Megan Thee Stallion.
Without doubt, okay. There is no precedent of me owing Megan Thee Stallion for my career. I don't know that your number is correct. I think, who knows? I think I was nominated 6 times with Mad About You, or 7, but I don't know if I did pass that. But who knows? I'll take it. Let's say 11. It sounds so much better.
That's what the Emmy website says. You know, you've done a lot of stuff. You've not just acted, you've been a producer, all kinds of
Yeah, so maybe it's in that world. Okay, sure.
Yeah, collectively, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've done a lot of stuff. That's right.
Yeah, it's true. I did want to ask you about that scene, which is in episode 2 of season 3. You absolutely spit some lyrics, as they might say. You do have a scene where it is revealed that you are, if not a fan, then certainly an appreciator of Megan Thee Stallion. How was that scene for you, like learning those lyrics and filming?
Well, it was funny because the character was just, I didn't have to act too hard. But it was, I thought it was a really funny choice that Chuck Lorre had. That, and as he says to Kathleen Turner, we're of an age. And I say, are you familiar with Megan Thee Stallion? And by the way, there was a whole debate on the set. Is it Megan Thee? Everyone said, no, it's the. I go, well, why would she put the second E if she doesn't want us to use it? And Chuck said, we should just film that, you arguing how to pronounce it. But the premise was, it's not my cup of tea, but I'm trying to expand my horizons because of my younger bride, Sarah Baker. Mm-hmm. So in life, my almost 21-year-old son is a huge hip hop and rap enthusiast, and will insist that that's what plays in the car. And I have certain limits. I go, that one's too foul, and it's just, and so I ran it by him, and he couldn't wait to see me do it. And then he was oddly proud, amused, and validated. And I believe his comment was, Dad, that is you saying it exactly like every white guy who doesn't have a clue would do it. I went, well, that's sweet, I think.
Then you did it right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was aiming for.
Yeah. Well, I love that scene. So I'm glad that you are being
great fun. It was great fun.
Yeah. I did want to, talk about the 3rd season. This was the 3rd and final of the Kominsky Method. How did it feel working with this group again and sort of knowing it was wrapping up?
Well, one of the challenges was we filmed it. It was the first thing I had done in the pandemic, and it was, there was a lot of protocol and a lot of caution, and it inhibits, the sense of joy and love, and literally you can't hug and you can't see everybody, and, working with people that if I saw them today, I don't know what they look like because I just saw that. And So that was challenge. The fact that we pulled it off, and there were a couple of scares along the way. Somebody on the crew would be test positive, which would throw things. So that was an interesting challenge. And it's rare that going into a season that it will be a final. So it does give you the luxury of planning. So Chuck had all this year to write it, although he doesn't need that much time. So it was. I had no idea what they were going to do, and I was really curious to see how he was going to handle the departure of Alan Arkin, who was the pillar, the co-pillar. And he started off boldly. He started the season off with a funeral of like, let's not beat around the bush, boom, dead, and deal with it. But it was really quite beautiful. And first of all, it was really, a funeral is also a great place for comedy because you're not really supposed to be laughing. So everything is like tense. But the premise of the show is really about adult male friendship and aging. And death is a big part of that. So to see what that did to Michael's character, to Sandy Kominsky, was really interesting. But what I found really, I don't want to jump the gun. I'm sure you're going to ask about what I found so surprising and moving is that in this season, which had death and departure and illness and all these things, the most moving and surprising through line was Sandy Kominsky's success in his career. And that I had never seen that dealt with. Like, what do you do when you get what you want, but it's so late? Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's such a bittersweet moment. And it took me by surprise how moved I was to watch that.
Mm. I would imagine also moved that, you were nominated for this season as well, which is,
awesome. Surprised and moved, but yeah.
It has to feel great. I mean, do you celebrate? Like, do you get a lot of text messages? What's that like?
It's funny. I have never really been particularly involved or put any great stake in any of these awards. Excuse me. And this year I literally had no awareness. I wasn't even clocking when things go in. I don't know that I voted or I don't remember ever seeing anything. So I didn't even know it was a thing. And in my mind, it was still 2020. We're like, are there Emmys? Are there going to be? So I actually was flying. I was flying the morning of the announcements and had no idea. Landed, and I turned on my phone, and there were all these texts. And the first one was from the producer, the Kominskys, who I hadn't spoken to in a while. It says, "Congratulations." And I thought, on landing? Because we landed? I go, why wouldn't we land? And then I saw another one. I went, oh. So first thing is like, oh, that's happening? And really? So it was literally a surprise. And to be, now there's so many, it's not just 3 networks, obviously, there's all these platforms and there's so much content. So in all of that, for enough people to go, who we enjoyed was this performance, is really quite, it's appreciated. It's very gratifying. It's gratifying is the word.
Yeah, this is how we wanted you to know that we no longer just clap when the plane lands. We text people too to say congratulations for landing.
Wow, everybody knows everything.
Well, you were nominated for supporting character in a comedy, but let's talk about supporting, which is that Ponytail. And I think if there was a category for, a prop that could really, really do their job this year, absolutely that Ponytail would be nominated.
Isn't it funny? It was such a tiny thing, and it speaks volumes, and everybody noticed it because it just says so much about this guy, and it's so silly. When I first put on all that makeup and the prosthetics, and I fell asleep in the chair, I woke up and I looked, I said, that's my father. I've become my father. And then I saw the ponytail, I said, oh, that's not my father. So it's sort of a nod to a prior life where I might have been a little bit more hip and a little bit more with it. But it's funny, it does so much of the acting for you and just lets you relax into it. Because I was saying the other day, it's like, whatever vanity you hold on to as an actor just goes out the window. This character was so deliberately, over the hill and physically not and sort of clueless about his own vanity. So to let go of that, just go, yeah, this is this bald, portly guy with a bad ponytail and horrendous shoes. and then to go against and just say, yeah, he's happy. You can stare at my shoes all you want, but I find them quite comfortable.
Yeah.
It's a really funny character.
Do you feel when you're in that makeup chair too, and it's all being applied, do you feel yourself slipping into the character that way too? Like, does it really help you to become Martin in that moment?
For sure. Yeah, especially if I would pass a mirror, because I would forget about it. There were a couple of occasions where I'd walk around, go for a little walk outside on a break and pass somebody that a friend or somebody I casually knew. I go, oh, how are you? And they would just stare at me and went, oh, because I don't look like it. So I would forget, and then I'd pass a mirror and I go, oh, gosh, that's me.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Martin's evolution this season. Were there any moments that you especially enjoyed for your character this time? Yeah,
what's funny and at the core of most comedy, but certainly this comedy, is the tension. You always need tension. So originally, my character was intended to be a thorn in Michael Douglas's side. He's a guy who's been dating younger women his whole life, and now finally his shoe's on the other foot, and his young daughter is marrying this old guy. And then, to everyone's surprise, we become really close, which now there's friction with his daughter and me and her. Like, why are you so friendly with my father? And then this year, the money was introduced, and it's like, I like you, E. Martin, but okay, you need to keep your hands. So it becomes all these secrets. So I thought that was really fun. And to play that, there was one scene that I remember we did in the second or third episode where he's put this bug in his daughter's ear, like, do not tell your husband that he's getting this money. And she's being odd and mean to me. And then I try to ask Sandy what it's about. So there's a scene in his car, which I always love those intense scenes because there's nowhere to go. It's just two talking, I'm mad about you. Those are always my favorites. Just sitting up in bed, two heads with dialogue. That to me is the most fun to write and to play. And what was fun about that is I was asking his help. Like, why is your daughter? Any idea why your daughter might be different with me these days? And he's, covering up but acting odd. And now so there's all these layers of secrecy and confusion, and then we're getting high in the middle of it. So it was a really rich, fun scene to play.
Yeah. And I feel like Chuck Lorre is very good at those car scenes too. Like, you sort of see them throughout a lot of shows that he works on. And I love those type of scenes too.
Yeah. It's sometimes it's a good reminder that you don't need a lot. Sometimes great invention and slapstick and prop comedy and physical comedy is great.
Yeah.
But absent all of that, just two heads, because the characters and what's going on between them. You think of any of the great sitcoms. I caught a piece of an old All in the Family, and it's shot so beyond simply, almost primitively. It's like head, and there's nothing fancy. There's no camera work, but these characters. So when Archie says something, you now cut to this face, and what this face is feeling, and you can anticipate what they're going to say. And that's really all you need is character.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about working with Michael Douglas too. Which did you have a preference between season 2 and season 3 when you first were sort of antagonizing him and then you guys were friends? What did you sort of think about the growth in that friendship?
Well, I knew from the beginning in season 2 that the initial reservations that he had about me were going to go away. And then the joke was, well, we got along so well that it's annoying his daughter. Mm-hmm. So I knew that was coming. But by this season, it felt like we were close enough to be irritated and on a new level, and there's a point when when I find out that he's been bad-mouthing me and keeping the secret, and I'm able to say, shame on you. I thought we were friends. So it was great fun to have that level of connection and intimacy that you can say, well, I'm disappointed in you. And that, and he has to come crawling back, apologize. And he has to apologize for trying to protect his daughter. He's an interesting guy, Michael Douglas, because he's been a star so long and he's not necessarily showy. I mean, he is, and he can do anything. But you think of it, well, there's guys like De Niro or Pacino, who just are very iconic, and you can almost identify their style. And Michael is more subtle or something. So I never really thought much about it. Just you see a movie and go, well, he's great. He's Michael Douglas. And I remember thinking, the first time we did a scene, the first season 2, we did a scene, and I think it was in a car, and he was, very quiet and very subtle, and in the back of my dumb head, I'm going, I don't think he's going to look so good. He's not really. He's not doing anything. I think he's going to be disappointed when he sees. And I see it, and I go, oh, geez, he's like brilliant. He knows exactly where the camera, what the size is, what the character. It's like, oh yeah, he's very smart and good. So the irony was, Sandy's this acting teacher, but I really did learn a lot watching him. Just his discipline, his focus, his playfulness too. He was open to things. He was just really great to learn from him.
Oh, I love that. Let's talk a little bit about Sarah Baker as well, who I just think is so lovely and wonderful, and I love watching her. You tell me a little bit about what it's like working with her and sort of, developing that relationship that you two share. What were some of your favorite moments working with her?
She reminded me, when on the first day I went over and I told her how much I loved her on the show, and she looked at me, she goes, we worked together before. I went, did we? And I forgot, and I did a show 8 years ago maybe, called Married. And there was one scene that she was operating this school or this gym or something, and I forgot. And I mean, she was great then, but I didn't make the connect. I said, "Oh, that was you." But she's great because she's so funny and so rich, but she doesn't try for the joke. Her character, she's playing the character, so you see her irritation with her father. You see her irritation with her fiance, and her vulnerability, but she's so strong. Her character is so advocates for herself, and she stands up for herself, and she worries about her father, and she doesn't put up with his crap and or mine. So it's a really beautifully written character that she does so much with sometimes so little. She can just do a small take or a raised eyebrow, and you go, that's funny.
Yeah. A little bit of kismet too, that you guys worked together on a show called Married, and then to see now where, your characters are. That's so fun.
Didn't put that together, but yes.
Yeah, there you go. I love that season 3 ends with a wedding too. Sorry if that's a little bit of a spoiler for some people, but hello, catch up.
No spoilers anymore. Everything is seen right away.
Everything's out there. How was it? Did you like doing that it, sort of ended in that way?
Yeah, it was strange. Again, it was informed by the pandemic. So we had to have a very closed set. We couldn't have all those extras. I think those were put in later. They might have even been put in post, like fake people or people pasted in. So it didn't have all that warmth and that it might have had. But the story, it was beautiful, and then Chuck wrote these really funny diversions in the, speech, as I'm giving my heart and future to her, I'm stopping to inform the audience of what I mean when I say young adult and what that is. It's like, just stay here. That to me, that always makes me laugh. Somebody who just can't stay on point.
How did you become involved in this show too? Because it feels like this was made for you, written for you. It feels like this was just sort of a perfect situation. How did that initially even come to be?
It did feel like that. And I think it became more and more where Chuck, I actually know Chuck for years. He was a baby writer in the late 80s when we first met, and he was only this big. And so we had kept in touch, and it's a crazy lesson how things happen, or not a crazy lesson, but an example of how things can happen. So over the years, we would periodically just touch base and say hello, or he'd see me in something, or I'd see something of his, and I had seen the first season of Kominsky Method, so I just emailed him to say, wow, it's great, because I was so blown away. Chuck is such a master of the traditional multicam sitcom, and this was something different. And I thought, well, how's that going to look? Is it going to, he's sort of trying something new, and there's a learning curve, but it was brilliant and it was beautiful and touching. So I just wrote to say, attaboy, it's beautiful. And we had talked maybe about 2 years ago about doing something. And so I jokingly said, well, hey, why don't you and I do something like this? Come on, 2 guys sitting in a car. I could do that all day. And so he said, that's interesting. Let's have lunch. So we had lunch, and I just pitched him the barest ideas of, what we could do? What might be a fun show? This or maybe that. And he went, yeah. Let me ask you this. And he said, how would you? He said, you don't. He said, you don't have to answer me right now, but what would you think about coming on Kominsky Method? And so he had this idea for the character. He had in his mind that season 2 there'd be an older guy that would get involved with Michael's daughter. And I think originally he was planning it would be somebody older. And then he looked at me and went, yeah, he's old enough. We could just, so he had it in mind. He had, once we met, and I said, I'd love to do that. And that was like December. And I think January we were filming.
Wow.
And but he said, before we actually jumped in, he said, we had a meeting, he said, I'm going to, just so you know, we want to give you some padding. I said, I have padding of my own. I don't know that I need, but okay. He said, we're going to make you bald. I said, I'm on my way. It's going. He said, no, we're going to make you bald. I said, well, that's funny. And he said, and then he waited, and he said, and we're going to give you a ponytail. I said, well, that's brilliant. That's really great. So he had that all in mind. And my only concern, I said, just make sure we get people who do it well, because you ever see bad prosthetics or bad, it just looks like, a high school production of Death of a Salesman. It's like not good. Right. So they got these great guys, and they were really meticulous about their work. And that was that. So, and then once we started doing it, he knew how to write for me. And in many ways, we have a very, very similar sense of humor. I was actually kind of jolted. There were 3 or 4 examples where he wrote something that literally were lines in my stand-up act. I go, wow. Did you hear me? He goes, no. I went, I'd say that. That's my line. Wow. And he independently wrote it. I went, okay, so there is an overlap of, of his brain and my brain. His is just faster and better.
Wow. How are you choosing projects that you get involved with these days? I'm guessing the offers are coming in everywhere, but also, I'm a big fan of There's Johnny, and, I feel like I've watched.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're the one.
Yeah, here I am. Are you, looking into producing things? Are you talking to a lot of people? How are you choosing what you want to work on now?
It's very scattershot. It's really, there's no plan. I'm not, 20 years ago, I think when Mad About You was over, I was intent on having my own production company. I'm going to develop things. And that was so, it's interesting, with all that, it was just so unproductive. You'd spend so much energy and time, and then it would just die on the vine, and things wouldn't go, and it just never felt quite worth all that blood, sweat, and tears. And then things like this happen, like Stranger Things came out of nowhere. Red Oaks came, and all these things. And There's Johnny was something that, yes, that was a passion project that I've been working on with my writing partner for years, and stopping and starting, and finally we saw an opening and we got to make it. I think I'm a bit, on one hand, I'm more selective because I just don't want to do anything that doesn't have appeal, and the appeal can be any number of things, like, well, that's a great script. I don't know the director or the actors, but it's a great script. Or, well, the script's not great, but boy, those are great actors, so there has to be something that appeals to you. And this was Kominsky was a no-brainer. It's like, I knew the show. It was great. I knew Chuck. I knew Michael. I adored and idolized Alan Arkin. I just, yeah. And it was also so well run. Chuck is so, successful, and he has 7, 8 shows running. So it's a well-tuned machine. So it was just, going to work was a joy. You didn't ever have to go, oh, I hope next week's script is good. Yeah, it's going to be good. Yeah. Like that scene, even in a good show, like there's a weak scene. It's like, no, there's no weak scenes in this. It's all really good. And for this also, it was the joy of just jumping into a sandbox that wasn't mine. I didn't have to carry the show. It's like, so I just do this part, and and then this season there was more, so it was much more to do. And Alan's absence, he wrote more for me and Michael. But to answer your question, there really is. Sometimes I'm surprised at what I find myself involved with. I was like, I don't know how that came about, but I seem to be busy. And it's sort of like this Emmy nomination. Like, I literally wasn't thinking about it. It's like, I think that's the secret. Don't plan, don't even think about it, and then things happen. So that's my new plan, is just don't even think.
Great. Yeah, just turn that brain right off.
It seems to be working.
Yeah. Well, we're going to wrap up soon, but Paul, congratulations again. Very much rooting for you. Excited for this Emmy nomination and incredibly deserved. It was just such a joy to watch you this season. And on behalf of the SAG-AFTRA Foundation, I want to thank you for sharing your experiences, process, and craft with your fellow performers today. And thank you so much. Hope to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.